There's a reason you've been feeling tired. Not just in your body, but in your mind. That quiet sense of burnout. The lack of drive. The fog that never really lifts. It's not because you're lazy, and it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because your brain is running low on dopamine, the neurotransmitter that fuels your focus, your motivation, your emotional stability. In today's world, filled with overstimulation, stress, and noise, most people are operating on a dopamine deficit without even knowing it. But here's the good news. You don't need a prescription to reset. You don't need to escape your life. You just need to rebuild from the inside out, using small, consistent habits that actually work. In this video, you'll learn 10 powerful ways to naturally restore your dopamine levels. Backed by neuroscience and inspired by ancient Stoic wisdom, this isn't about fake positivity. This is about reclaiming your clarity, your energy, your sense of self. If you're ready to rebuild from the inside out, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to learn can change how you feel, how you think, and how you live. Intro. Dopamine is not the problem. Misuse is. Let's get one thing straight. Dopamine is not the enemy. It's not the problem. The real issue is how we use it. Dopamine is meant to motivate us, to reward meaningful action, to help us focus, persist, and grow. But in today's world, it's constantly being hijacked by things that offer instant hits but leave you emptier than before. Social media, caffeine, fast food, mindless scrolling. These things flood your brain with cheap dopamine and then leave it starved for the real kind. The kind you earn through movement, discipline, progress. Here's the truth. Disciplined people don't have more dopamine than you. They've just learned how to direct it, to channel it toward what actually matters. They don't chase dopamine. They train it. They align it. And the result? More clarity, more energy, more control. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you take back your dopamine and rebuild it in a natural, powerful, sustainable way? It starts with the basics. Have you ever noticed how different the world feels after a short walk? Your thoughts slow down. The mental fog starts to lift. You breathe more fully. You feel more like yourself. That's not just coincidence. That's chemistry. Movement, even simpler, gentle movement, triggers your brain to release dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and other neurochemicals that regulate your mood, your focus, your resilience. In other words, motion resets emotion. Not through force, not through perfection, but through rhythm. We live in a world obsessed with performance. 10,000 steps, 45-minute workouts, calories burned, heart rate zones. But your body doesn't need spectacle to heal. It needs presence. It needs rhythm. It needs movement, even if it's slow, even if it's soft. Dopamine doesn't wait for a gym session or a personal trainer. It responds to motion, to flow, to the return of circulation, breath, blood, awareness. But here's the irony. When we feel low, emotionally flat, anxious, unmotivated, movement is usually the first thing we stop doing. We sit, we scroll, we sleep too much, we spiral. But that's exactly when movement is most needed. Not to impress anyone, not to hit a goal, but to reset your inner state, because every form of internal stagnation, emotional or mental, is your nervous system quietly asking, can we move again? And this isn't just modern wellness advice. The Stoics knew this over 2,000 years ago. Cleanthes, one of the earliest Stoic thinkers, was a laborer. By day, he studied philosophy. By night, he hauled water. Physical labor wasn't separate from his inner work. It was part of it, a way to sharpen the mind by moving the body. That's why I want to introduce something I call the micro-movement protocol. It's not a program. It's not a challenge. It's a rhythm reset for your nervous system. Here's how it works. Every 2 hours of work or sitting, you pose. Stand up. Walk for 3 minutes. Stretch your arms. Roll your shoulders. Move your neck slowly. Shake out the tension. That's it. 3 minutes of intentional motion to remind your nervous system, I'm here. I'm not frozen. I'm safe to move. Because the body doesn't know the difference between emotional stress and physical threat. If you stay still too long, it thinks you're in danger. It tightens up. It shuts down. It spirals into fatigue. But just a little movement sends the opposite message. We're alive. We're responsive. We're still in control. And the benefits go beyond dopamine. Gentle movement also regulates cortisol. It lowers anxiety. It stabilizes blood sugar. It increases oxygen to the brain. It reawakens presence, not just mentally, but physically. You don't need fancy shoes. You don't need a routine. You just need permission. Permission to stand up, to stretch, to walk barefoot in your home, to feel your body again, not as a burden, but as an ally. Let movement become part of your daily rhythm, not as punishment, but as medicine. Let it be slow. Let it be imperfect. Let it be real. Because here's what most people never learn. Dopamine doesn't need intensity. It needs consistency. It doesn't need spectacle. It needs rhythm. So here's a question you can ask yourself every single day. What kind of movement can I give myself today? Not what looks good on Instagram. Not what burns the most calories. Not what checks a box. But what your body is quietly asking for. Maybe it's a short walk in silence. Maybe it's stretching while listening to music. Maybe it's dancing for no reason in your kitchen. Whatever it is, trust it. Honor it. Begin there. Because healing isn't dramatic. It's not a transformation montage. It's the slow, steady return to presence. It's the reminder that motion is truth. That a mind in motion is a mind that begins to find answers. That a body in motion helps release the emotions you've been storing. And when you stop moving, everything starts to close in. Your thoughts get louder. Your energy gets stuck. Your self-talk becomes darker. But when you move, even slowly, you unlock something ancient in yourself. You awaken a sense of self-trust. A quiet voice that says, I may not be where I want to be, but I'm not frozen. I'm not stuck. I'm still moving forward. So let's drop the all-or-nothing mindset. Let's stop waiting for motivation to show up. Movement creates motivation. Motion creates clarity. Momentum creates dopamine. This is the new ritual. Not for fitness, but for mental strength, emotional grounding, inner clarity, because your nervous system isn't asking for perfection, it's asking for rhythm, for breath, for motion. So today, just start. Start small. Move gently. Move daily. And trust that dopamine will follow. There's a moment. Maybe you've had it too. You open the fridge, not because you're hungry, but because something inside feels off. Not pain exactly, just noise, restlessness, attention. You can't quite name. And in that moment, you're not reaching for food. You're reaching for relief. But what we rarely ask is this: what am I feeding when I eat like this? Most of us were never taught to eat for clarity. We were taught to eat for reward, for comfort, for pleasure. And over time, we confused comfort with healing. But food isn't just comfort. It's chemistry. It's communication between your gut and your brain. And your brain, especially the part that governs focus, motivation, and emotional stability, is always listening. That part of the brain, it speaks dopamine. And dopamine isn't a luxury. It's the current that helps you think, move, and feel like yourself. Here's the truth that gets missed. Your brain builds dopamine from the nutrients you give it. No nutrition, no dopamine, no dopamine, no drive, no clarity, no stable emotional ground. You can't out-hustle poor nutrition. You can't meditate your way out of a fried dopamine system. And yet, most of us are running on coffee, sugar, skipped meals, and late-night binge snacks. Then, wondering why we wake up groggy, reactive, emotionally thin-skinned. This isn't a willpower problem. This is your biology waving a red flag. See, dopamine is synthesized from an amino acid called tyrosine. Tyrosine comes from protein. Protein comes from food, not from your phone, not from your to-do list, not from energy drinks. When your body gets real, whole food, especially protein, fiber, and healthy fats, your brain breathes. It stops panicking. It starts building. Suddenly, the fog lifts. You're not as scattered. You feel full, not just in your stomach, but in your center. But when you reach for processed comfort every time you're overwhelmed, you train your brain to expect false safety. Quick sugar equals quick dopamine equals quick crash. And now, your system is hooked, not on food, but on the emotional hit. So how do we break the loop? You don't start with willpower. You start with awareness. The next time you feel that familiar pull toward the fridge, pause. Just ask, am I feeding my body or escaping something that's not judgment? That's clarity. Because once you recognize the difference, you can make a different kind of choice. Not a perfect one, a powerful one. Let's say it's morning. You're tired. You didn't sleep well. You're tempted to skip food and just go straight to caffeine. But what if, instead, you build something simple and steady? 2 boiled eggs, a handful of spinach sautéed in olive oil, a small bowl of oats with cinnamon and chia seeds, water with lemon. That's not just breakfast. That's a biochemical message that says, I choose to feel clear today. I choose to fuel instead of escape. I choose presence. And your brain. It will thank you, not with fireworks, but with calm, with grounded energy, with the ability to focus, speak, and respond, not react. On the other hand, if you skip breakfast or load up on sugar and caffeine, your dopamine peaks and crashes before noon. You spend the rest of the day chasing stability that should have started in your kitchen. This isn't about dieting. It's not about rules. It's about respect for your body, your chemistry, your clarity. And it goes even deeper, because food is also how you eat. Not just what. If you eat standing up, rushing, while scrolling, while replying to emails, you're not digesting. You're distracting. Your nervous system can't heal in a state of constant urgency. But when you sit, take a breath, taste your food, have slowly, that's not a performance. That's a nervous system reset. Your body reads that as, I'm safe, I'm nourished, I'm not under threat. And dopamine loves safety. It thrives in consistency, not chaos. So don't make food another place where you punish yourself. Make it a place where you practice alignment. Eat with the same energy you want to live with. Calm, present, intentional. And when you do indulge, which you will, and should, do it awake, not numbed out, not in hiding. Enjoy it with gratitude, not guilt. Because what we do in silence rewires us. And food, when silent and unconscious, rewires the wrong way. But food chosen with clarity, it becomes part of your healing. It becomes a tool. It becomes a quiet revolution. You don't need to eat clean. You need to eat clearly. And that clarity builds dopamine, one plate at a time. So, eat with the end in mind. Not just to feel full, but to feel capable, to feel steady, to feel you. If these strategies are already starting to make sense to you, if you can feel how they might change your daily experience, then you're exactly who this channel is for. We're building a community of people who understand that real change happens from the inside out. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're just getting warmed up. You can eat well. You can move every day. You can practice stillness. Breathe deeply. Meditate. Journal. But if your sleep is broken, none of it sticks. None of it holds. Because when sleep collapses, everything else becomes harder than it should be. Your thoughts feel heavier. Your emotions become louder. Your motivation, silent. We treat sleep like a break, a passive thing, something we do when everything else is finished. But biologically, sleep is one of the most active processes your brain goes through. It's not a pause. It's a reset. It's the moment your body and brain go to work, repairing, rebalancing, recharging. And at the center of that process is dopamine. You see, during deep sleep, your brain literally cleans itself. It clears away metabolic waste, like neurological garbage. It resets your emotional circuits. It restores the sensitivity of dopamine receptors. It strengthens memory, rebuilds learning, and prepares you for the world again. But if sleep is disrupted, if it's shallow, scattered, or cut short, dopamine can't do its job. Even worse, your brain stops responding to dopamine the way it should. This is why people who sleep poorly often feel emotionally numb or overly reactive. They can't enjoy things, can't focus, can't get excited. Because even when dopamine is present, the system that receives it is fried. It's like pouring clean water into a broken pipe. It leaks. It doesn't hold. And what makes this even more dangerous? We live in a world that glamorizes burnout. We praise the all-nighters, the hustle culture, the 4-hour sleep routines as if they were signs of strength. But strength isn't in how long you can ignore your needs. Strength is in knowing when to rest deeply and protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Now here's where most people go wrong. They treat sleep like something that will just happen when they're tired enough. They collapse into bed, phone still in hand, blue light burning into their eyes, mind still racing from the day. Then they wonder why they can't sleep well, why they wake up exhausted, why their motivation is gone by 10 a.m. Sleep isn't just about the number of hours. It's about how you enter it. The quality of your sleep starts long before your head hits the pillow. That's why you need to create what I call your sleep sanctuary. It's not a room. It's a message to your nervous system. You're safe now. You can let go. So what does that sanctuary look like? It's a space with no screens, no emails, no notifications, no tasks to finish, no mental to-do lists looping in your head. Dim the lights, cool the room, silence the noise. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to recover your ability to be fully present tomorrow. Your room should feel like a signal, a gentle cue that says, "The day is done. Now we return. Now we restore." And perhaps the most powerful shift of all, the digital sunset. 1 hour before sleep, everything with a screen goes off. No Netflix, no TikTok, no email, no arguments in comment sections, no scrolling through chaos. Why? Because your brain doesn't know the difference between the content you consume and the threats it feels. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, your sleep hormone. Dopamine gets overstimulated by endless novelty. Your cortisol stays high, and your body doesn't shift into rest. It stays in alert. But when you cut the digital stream, when you unplug from noise, you give your brain a chance to breathe again, to slow down, to return to natural rhythm. Maybe you read, maybe you write, maybe you just sit in silence for a few minutes. Maybe you stretch, or light a candle, or just lie in bed and breathe. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, on purpose. When you sleep, your brain isn't passive. It's orchestrating one of the most complex systems in the human body, and it needs space, stillness, and rhythm to do that well. If you don't give it that, you start the next day deficient, less emotionally stable, less focused, less motivated. And that's when the cycle begins again. Caffeine to wake you up, sugar to keep you going, screens to keep you distracted. And by nighttime, you're too wired to sleep again. This is how most people burn out without ever realizing it. Not from dramatic events, but from the quiet, daily erosion of rest. But you don't have to live in that cycle. Tonight, you can break it. Not by forcing 8 perfect hours, but by doing one thing differently. By choosing to make sleep something sacred again. Turn off the screen. Dim the light. Close the loops. Tell your body, we are safe. We can let go now. We'll begin again in the morning. Because every good day begins the night before. And when you start sleeping with intention, you stop chasing dopamine and start waking up with it. You don't need hacks. You need rhythm. You need space. You need a mind that isn't tired of holding everything together. Sleep is not weakness. It's strategy. It's restoration. It's self-respect. So tonight, ask yourself, have I made space for the kind of rest I actually need? Have I protected that space like something sacred? If the answer is no, that's okay. Begin again tonight. Begin with one choice, one boundary, 1 hour of digital silence, one dim light, one slow exhale. Because when your sleep resets, your chemistry resets, your mind clears. And dopamine doesn't need to be chased anymore. It returns, quietly, powerfully, night by night. We often think of stillness as something passive, as doing nothing, as a gap between real activities. But the truth is, stillness is one of the most active things your nervous system can experience. Not outwardly, not visibly, but chemically, neurologically, emotionally. Because in a world that never stops, a mind that can pause is not weak. It's trained. Stillness isn't boring. It's where balance begins. It's where dopamine stops being drained by endless stimulation and starts being restored by presence. And presence doesn't come from having the perfect mindset. It doesn't come from lighting a candle or sitting on a meditation cushion. Presence comes from choosing to be with yourself, even when there's nothing to distract you. Most people have forgotten how to do that. We fill every spare moment with something: a glance at the phone, a new tab, a short scroll. Even at a red light, we feel the urge to check. It's not that we're busy. It's that we've lost our tolerance for stillness. But here's the thing. Your brain hasn't. Your body hasn't. Your soul hasn't. Stillness may feel foreign at first, but it's not unnatural. In fact, it's what your biology craves. Because, in the absence of stimulation, your nervous system gets the green light to repair itself. When you're in stillness, true stillness, your dopamine levels begin to stabilize. You stop burning through energy. You stop chasing temporary rewards. You stop being pulled in 100 directions. Instead, your system starts shifting into regulation. You begin to return to yourself. And maybe you've never thought of it this way, But stillness isn't just spiritual. It's physical. It's chemical. Your breath slows. Your heart rate softens. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, comes back online. You become calmer, clearer, more centered. Not because you fixed everything, but because you stopped trying to fix everything for a moment. And in that space, you remembered who you are without all the noise. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter retreat than in his own soul." He understood that the most reliable refuge isn't found on a map. It's built inside of you. And in today's world, that inner refuge is more important than ever. Because we don't suffer from a lack of information, we suffer from a lack of space. We don't break down because we're weak. We break down because we never pause long enough to process, to breathe, to reset. But here's what's beautiful. Stillness doesn't require hours of your day. It just requires a window, a small one. One moment in time where nothing else is allowed in. No to-do list. No text messages. No multitasking. Just a pocket of quiet. I call it the one-window rule. Every single day, find one window, just 5, 10, or 15 minutes, where you unplug completely. Not to nap, not to scroll, not to plan, just to sit, to breathe, to be with your own experience. No judgment, no productivity, just presence. And if that still feels intimidating, you can start even smaller. 1 minute, one intentional breath. One moment where you close your eyes and allow the world to fall away just long enough for your nervous system to remember, I'm not in danger. I don't need to perform. I'm allowed to be. This is what I call micro-stillness. It sounds simple, because it is. But don't confuse simple with ineffective. The most powerful changes often begin in quiet ways. When you start practicing micro-stillness, your body starts to respond differently to life. You stop flinching at every notification. You stop overreacting to small things. You stop needing noise to feel okay. And instead, you begin to carry a quiet within you. A calm that doesn't come from external control, but from internal connection. You won't need to announce it. People will feel it. Because when someone is comfortable in stillness, they become magnetic, grounded, safe, and stillness is contagious. It teaches those around you that calm is possible, that clarity doesn't have to be loud, that rest is not the enemy of progress. It's the root of it. Because the truth is, you're not meant to be on all the time. You're not supposed to have answers at every moment. You don't have to be available to everything, all at once. Sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is nothing at all. Nothing except sit in a chair, feel your breath, and remember that peace doesn't live in the next task. It lives in your ability to pause without guilt. And yes, your mind will resist at first. It will remind you of emails, of chores, of deadlines. That's okay. Let the thoughts come. Let them pass. You don't need to chase them. You just need to stay. Because with each moment you stay, you strengthen a muscle. Most people never build the capacity to exist without distraction. And as that muscle grows, so does your clarity, So does your discipline. So does your dopamine balance. Because what you're practicing isn't emptiness. You're practicing presence. You're making space for everything real to rise. We often wait too long to feel proud of ourselves. We delay permission. We tell ourselves, when I finally get the job, when I lose the weight, when I fix my whole life, then, maybe, I'll feel good. But that thinking is backward. It's the reason so many people feel stuck. Not because they aren't growing, but because they aren't recognizing the growth that's already happening. Here's the truth. Your brain is designed to respond to progress, not perfection, not big wins, just movement. And when you give it even a small sign that you're moving forward, dopamine kicks in. You feel a spark, a lift, a moment of, I'm doing something that matters. And that's all it takes to keep going. But when you wait for big milestones, you rob your brain of that momentum. You delay the chemistry that would help you stay consistent. You train your system to believe nothing counts until it's finished. That's not resilience. That's self-sabotage. The Stoics had a different way. They weren't obsessed with achievement. They were obsessed with direction. Epictetus once said, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Simple, clear, honest. Not about dreaming, about deciding, then moving. And movement isn't dramatic. It's often invisible. It's what happens when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when it's just you and the decision to show up again. This is why tracking your small wins isn't just a feel-good habit. It's a dopamine training system. Every time you notice what you did right, even if it's tiny, you reinforce a neural pathway that says, I can trust myself. I keep promises. I follow through. And your brain starts to crave more of that. That's how you build momentum from the inside out. So what does that look like in real life? It starts with micro goals. Not write a book, but write 100 words. Not transform my health, but drink 1 glass of water in the morning. Not be unshakable emotionally, but take 1 breath before I react. Then, this is the key. Acknowledge it. Track it. Notice it. Not because the goal is small, but because you are reteaching your nervous system what progress feels like. You're building confidence through evidence. Not hype. Not affirmation. Just action. Try this. At the end of the day, write down 3 wins. They don't have to be dramatic. In fact, they shouldn't be. Did you get out of bed when you didn't feel like it? Win. Did you resist a negative impulse? Win. Did you speak gently to someone, even when it was hard? Win. You are not weak for celebrating small things. You are wise because you understand what drives sustainable change. And the best part, this creates an upward spiral. When you recognize a win, dopamine is released. When dopamine is released, you feel more energized. When you feel more energized, you're more likely to show up again tomorrow. This is the cycle most people never tap into. They think motivation has to arrive before action, but that's not how it works. Action creates motivation. Tiny wins create momentum. And momentum builds identity. This is how you stop seeing yourself as stuck and start seeing yourself as someone in motion. Let's bring this home. Imagine a child learning to walk. They fall 100 times, but every step, every wobble, every tiny victory is met with celebration. Why do we stop doing that for ourselves? Why do we act like progress only matters if it's perfect? You don't become strong in one leap. You become strong in one honest step. Then another. Then another. So here's the shift. Instead of saying, "I'll be proud when I finally get there," start saying, "I'm proud every time I take a step in the direction I've chosen." Because each time you do, your brain changes. Your confidence rises. Your emotions regulate. Your dopamine builds. You don't need external approval. You need internal evidence. So tonight, before you sleep, open a note on your phone or grab a piece of paper. Write down 3 wins, any size, and do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Because the people who feel the most capable aren't always the ones with big victories. They're the ones who've been tracking the small ones all along. This is how you become trustworthy to yourself. This is how you build a life that isn't reactive, but reliable. One honest action, one quiet win, one moment where you say, "I showed up today," even if no one saw it, even if I didn't want to, even if it wasn't perfect. I showed up, and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's momentum. That's dopamine, built from the ground up. When you learn how to recognize progress, even the invisible kind, you begin to see yourself as someone who keeps going, not someone who rushes, someone who moves with intention. And once you've learned to move forward like that, even slowly, you'll discover that the direction you're heading in matters more than how fast you're going. Because one step, done with honesty, done with awareness, done with presence, can change everything. There are moments when words don't work, when your thoughts are tangled, your mood is flat, and you don't even know what you need to feel better. And then, a song comes on, and suddenly, everything shifts. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your heart softens, your mind feels lighter. That's not magic. That's chemistry. Music is one of the fastest ways to change your emotional state, because it speaks directly to your brain's reward system, the very part responsible for dopamine, motivation, energy, even emotional healing. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to understand it. You just have to feel it. When you listen to music that resonates, not just background noise, but music that truly moves you, your brain responds with a natural release of dopamine. It shifts your state without force, without effort. That's why a certain melody can bring tears to your eyes. Not out of sadness, but recognition. It reminds you of something buried, something real, something human. And unlike so many things in our modern world, music doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't ask you to be productive. It doesn't expect you to explain. It simply offers space, a soundscape for healing, a rhythm for release. Let's be clear. This isn't about distraction. This is about alignment. The right music doesn't pull you away from your experience. It anchors you inside it. It helps you process, not avoid. So how do we use this tool intentionally? First, know your emotional states. Music can do different things, depending on what you need. If you're feeling flat and low on energy, uplifting rhythms, strong beats, inspiring lyrics, these can elevate your mood. Wake you up from emotional numbness, not artificially, but rhythmically. If you're feeling anxious and overstimulated, ambient sounds, soft piano, nature tones, these help slow your system, re-regulate your breath, and lower cortisol. If you're mentally scattered, instrumental tracks can enhance focus. Classical music, lo-fi beats, even slow electronic textures. They give your brain something to ride without overwhelming it. And sometimes, you just need to feel, not fix, not reframe, just feel what's there. In that case, even sad music can be medicine. Because when we allow sadness to move through us, we stop resisting, we stop bottling, and dopamine rises, not because we solved something, but because we stopped fighting the truth of the moment. The key is intentionality. Don't just consume music the way you consume noise. Choose it. Curate your environment like you would your thoughts, like you would your food. With awareness, try this. Create a few core playlists for your emotional hygiene. One for grounding, one for elevation, one for stillness, one for raw feeling, one just for joy. Let these playlists be yours. Not algorithm-fed, not trend-driven, but honest. Let them reflect your truth. Let them remind you of who you were before the noise got too loud. Because sometimes, a single song has the power to return you to yourself quicker than any mantra, journal prompt, or pep talk. And when you use music with intention, as part of your daily rhythm, your dopamine system becomes more responsive. You become more emotionally flexible, more present, more in tune. Let's bring this into something real. Say you're feeling off. You've been overthinking. Your body feels heavy. You can't concentrate. Instead of opening another tab, instead of reaching for caffeine, instead of numbing out, you pause. You press play, and a familiar song fills the room. Maybe it's nostalgic. Maybe it's raw. Maybe it has no words at all. But it speaks something you haven't said aloud. Your breath slows. Your posture shifts. Your brain resets. That's dopamine. That's music doing its quiet work. And no one else has to hear it. No one has to understand it. Because healing doesn't always look like talking. Sometimes, it just sounds like a song only you needed to hear. And here's something powerful. The effects of music aren't just emotional. They're measurable. Research shows that listening to music activates the same neural circuits as physical pleasure, social connection, and achievement. It lights up the reward centers in your brain. It increases dopamine availability, and over time, it helps build resilience. That means music isn't just soothing. It's strategic, a neural tool, accessible, free, and deeply human. So give yourself permission to pause, to feel, to let music carry what words can't. Because sometimes, the most effective thing you can do for your mental health today is not another task. It's a song. Not all dopamine comes from inside you. Some of it comes from the people you let into your life. You may not realize it, but your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment for safety, support, and connection. And every conversation, every glance, every tone, every subtle reaction sends a signal to your brain. Some people leave you feeling lifted, seen, more yourself. Others leave you drained, self-conscious, quietly unsure of who you are. That's not just emotion, that's chemistry. Your relationships either support your dopamine system or sabotage it. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. You could be surrounded by hundreds of people and still feel disconnected. Or you could have two people in your life who get it, who see you, hold space for you, remind you of who you are beneath the roles. And that would be enough. Let's be honest. Most of us don't pay enough attention to how we feel after being with someone. We focus on whether the conversation was nice, whether we got through the dinner, the call, the text thread. But rarely do we ask, did that interaction feed me or take from me? Did I feel lighter or heavier afterward? That question matters, because your body remembers the answer. Even if your mind tries to justify it, you can fake politeness. You can smile and nod, but you can't fake chemistry. You can't fake resonance. And when you're around people who constantly judge, compare, gossip, or project, your nervous system goes into defense. You stop producing dopamine. You tighten. You brace. You shrink. That's not connection. That's emotional surveillance. And over time, those relationships start to reprogram your sense of self. You start walking on eggshells. You second-guess your truth. You become more reactive, less rooted. That's the cost of staying connected to people who aren't safe for your chemistry. But there's another way. You can curate your people like you curate your music, your food, your space. You can choose presence over performance, mutual support over silent resentment, depth over noise. And it starts with noticing. After every interaction, ask yourself, did I feel expanded or did I feel smaller? Did I feel permission to be myself, or did I feel like I had to manage someone else's emotions? Did I feel more grounded or more scattered? This isn't judgment. It's self-awareness. And it doesn't mean everyone around you has to be perfect, but they should be safe, consistent, kind, honest. People who don't just tolerate your growth, but protect it, celebrate it, challenge you gently, not shame you constantly. This is how we build a support system that actually supports. Seneca once said, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood." That's not sentiment. That's neurobiology. Because when you feel seen, dopamine releases. Your stress hormones lower. Your emotional bandwidth expands. Your self-worth stabilizes. In safe connection, you remember your capacity. You come back to life. But this goes both ways. You're not just choosing who's around you. You're also choosing how you show up. Be someone who listens without fixing. Who celebrates without comparing? Who shows up without performing? Who gives space instead of pressure? Be the kind of presence that other people feel safe in. Because healthy dopamine environments are built, not found. They are created through small, intentional acts, not dramatic loyalty tests or forced bonding. And sometimes, it's not about adding people. It's about letting go. About releasing relationships that have expired, connections you've outgrown, dynamics that only work when you're pretending. It's not cruelty. It's clarity. Because your energy is finite, and the people you keep around you shape your identity, your decisions, your peace. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. You don't have to keep investing in conversations that go nowhere. You don't have to keep proving your worth in places that don't value you. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's stewardship. It's taking responsibility for the emotional climate you live in. So let's make this simple. Start with one filter: who makes me feel more like myself. That's it. Not who agrees with you. Not who flatters you. Not who's convenient. But who brings you home to yourself. Those are the people worth building with, worth checking in with, worth keeping close. And if you don't have anyone like that yet, that's okay. Start by becoming that kind of person for yourself. Speak to yourself with the tone you've been craving from others. Listen to your needs. Hold your boundaries. Encourage your own progress. Because when you do, you begin attracting people who are aligned with your self-respect, not your self-neglect. And when your circle reflects your healing, not your hurt, you don't have to fight so hard to stay emotionally steady, because your environment supports it. So take stock. Look around. Who do you allow into your inner world? And do they truly deserve that access? Not out of ego, but out of care, out of responsibility. Because your peace, your clarity, your dopamine, they are not infinite. And the people around you can either lift it or drain it. You get to choose. There's a medicine most people forget. It's not in a bottle. It's not a supplement. It's not even something you can buy. It's light. Not the kind from your phone. Not the glow of your laptop. Not the artificial hum of ceiling bulbs. Real light. Sunlight. Unfiltered. Underrated. Unbelievably powerful. Your body was built for it. Your brain craves it. And your dopamine system depends on it. You see, sunlight is more than warmth. It's a biological switch. One that controls your internal clock, your mood, your energy, and yes, your dopamine. In the morning, when sunlight hits your skin and enters your eyes without sunglasses, a signal is sent to your brain. Wake up. Be alert. Be present. That light begins a chain reaction. It tells your brain to regulate hormones, balance serotonin, and most importantly, increase dopamine production in the areas responsible for motivation and focus. It's not a spiritual concept. It's neuroscience. Sunlight resets your circadian rhythm. It anchors your sleep-wake cycle. It lifts your mood. It helps you think more clearly, feel more grounded, and move with more energy. without needing caffeine or stimulation. And yet, we live most of our lives under artificial skies. We wake up and check our phones before we check the sky. We spend our days indoors, behind glass, surrounded by screens, flooded with input, but disconnected from light. And we wonder why we feel tired, foggy, unmotivated, disconnected. The truth: you're not always mentally unwell. You might just be biologically misaligned, because your nervous system was never designed for this much darkness, this much screen time, this much sitting, this much disconnection from the rhythm of nature. You were built for light. You were made to sync with the sun. Even the Stoics, long before we had science, understood this. Marcus Aurelius found clarity under the stars. Seneca reflected on the movement of the sun, the flow of rivers, the wind, the trees. To them, nature wasn't a backdrop. It was a teacher, a mirror, a recalibration, a place to remember what matters. And sunlight was part of that rhythm. So what does this look like for you? Practically, you don't need to move to the mountains. You don't need to hike every day. You don't need to romanticize anything. You just need to step outside. Every morning, if you can, within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, go outside for 5 to 10 minutes. No sunglasses, no distractions. Let the light hit your face. Let your feet hit the earth. Let your breath catch up to your body. Even on cloudy days, you'll still receive the essential frequencies of natural light that activate dopamine circuits. This is what I call your sunlight ritual. A short, powerful daily practice. Not for productivity. Not for performance. For presence. Because when you start your day with sunlight instead of screens, you shift your entire neurological tone. You tell your body, this is real. This is where the rhythm begins. And if you work indoors, take sunlight breaks. Instead of scrolling, step outside. Let light touch your skin. Let the sky remind you that not everything important is happening online. Because here's what sunlight does that. Dopamine spikes from social media. Can't it calms your nervous system? It anchors your biology. It energizes you gently, not chaotically. It doesn't crash. It doesn't overstimulate. It just restores. And that's the thing about nature. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't demand output. It doesn't judge how well you're doing. It just invites you back to rhythm, back to breath, back to natural dopamine, back to the real world, not the algorithmic one. Let's go deeper. When you consistently expose yourself to natural light in the morning, your sleep improves. Your emotional regulation improves. Your ability to focus deepens. Your craving for artificial dopamine lessens. You're no longer fighting your biology. You're aligning with it. And alignment is the most powerful dopamine state you can access. Not hype. Not overstimulation. Not escape. Just rhythm. Just restoration. So if you've been feeling heavy, if your thoughts are spinning, if your energy is inconsistent, ask yourself this simple question. When was the last time I let the sun touch me without distraction, not while rushing to the car, not while scrolling your feed, but intentionally, as if light itself were part of your healing, because it is. There's a kind of clarity that only comes when you're outside, under a wide open sky, with no screen between you and the world. And it's in those moments, standing still, breathing deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun reach your skin, that something in you returns. Not loudly, but fully. That's dopamine without drama. That's power without noise. That's nature doing what it's always done, reminding you that peace is not a product. It's a rhythm. It's a light. It's already yours. So tomorrow morning, before you check your notifications, before you check in with the world, check in with the sky. Because sometimes the thing you're missing, the clarity, the balance, the focus, the mood, isn't locked inside your mind. It's waiting just outside your door. There's a kind of energy that doesn't come from caffeine or achievement or being told you're doing well. It comes from something deeper, from alignment, from joy. Not the kind of joy that explodes, but the kind that flows quietly, naturally, from within. You've felt it before. That moment when time disappears, when the world fades away, when you're so immersed in what you're doing that you forget to check your phone, you forget to worry, you forget to prove anything. That's not distraction. That's presence. That's dopamine in its purest form. Because when you engage in something you love, something that matters to you, something that lights up your system from the inside, your brain responds. It rewards you. It anchors you. And this kind of joy isn't a luxury. It's not childish. It's not selfish. It's fuel. But somewhere along the way, we were taught that joy has to be earned, that we need to accomplish something first. That joy comes after the work is done, after the bills are paid, after the inbox is clear. But life doesn't work that way. Joy isn't a prize. It's a practice. And when you stop making space for it, you start running on fumes. You wake up exhausted. You lose your curiosity. You get things done, but something's missing. That something is flow. Flow isn't just about fun. It's about being fully alive. It's about tapping into a part of yourself that doesn't care how you look, doesn't care who's watching, doesn't even care about the outcome. It just wants to express, to explore, to create, to feel something real. That's what joy does. And joy, when practiced regularly, is one of the most effective ways to restore your dopamine system. Because this kind of dopamine doesn't spike and crash. It sustains. It stabilizes. It helps you build emotional resilience without needing outside validation. So, here's the invitation. Reclaim your joy and protect it. Carve out what I call your passion slot. Just 20 minutes a day. Not for productivity. Not for content. Not to show the world. But for you. Paint without posting. Write without editing. Garden without trying to be good at it. Play music without recording it. Read fiction just because it feels good to imagine. Let yourself enjoy something that doesn't lead anywhere. Something that exists just to exist. Because joy doesn't need a result. It needs room. And if you're thinking, but I don't even know what I enjoy anymore, that's okay. Start small. Think back to when you were younger, before the pressure, before the deadlines. before everything had to be productive. What did you do when no one was watching? What made you forget to eat? What made you feel like time didn't matter? That's your clue. Follow it. And don't judge what comes up. If it's building Lego models, do it. If it's writing poetry no one else sees, write it. If it's dancing in your kitchen, move. You don't owe the world a performance. You owe yourself a return. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you give yourself permission to play, you don't become irresponsible. You become more focused. Because joy clears the static. It lifts your energy without forcing it. It reminds your nervous system what it feels like to be safe and expressive. And from that place, you can work better. You can lead better. You can love better. Joy doesn't take away from your discipline. It gives it oxygen. And in a life filled with pressure, a life where dopamine is constantly drained by noise and demands, your passion slot becomes a sacred space. A place where nothing needs to make sense, where nothing needs to be monetized, where nothing needs to be shared. Only felt. 20 minutes. That's it. That's the boundary. That's the gift. And if even 20 minutes feels too much today, give yourself 10. Give yourself 5. Even 5 minutes of joy, practiced consistently, can start to repair what burnout has broken. And no, this isn't about self-indulgence. It's about emotional repair. It's about reminding yourself that life isn't just a checklist, it's an experience. So, if you've been moving through your days feeling numb, if you've been productive but empty, if you've been successful on the outside but quietly depleted on the inside, ask yourself, what part of me have I stopped listening to? What would I do right now if I didn't need a reason? Then do it. Not perfectly, not with a plan, just with presence. Because the most powerful version of you isn't just disciplined, it's alive. And joy, true, intrinsic, honest joy, brings you back to that version again and again. Don't carry stress. Complete the stress cycle. Here's something that will change how you think about stress forever. Stress itself isn't the problem. The problem is unprocessed stress that gets trapped in your nervous system and blocks your natural dopamine production. Think of stress like a chemical reaction that's designed to have a beginning, middle, and end. When you face a threat or challenge, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to help you respond. But in our modern world, we rarely complete the stress cycle. We get activated by a difficult email, a traffic jam, or a conflict with a family member, and then we just move on to the next thing without allowing our nervous system to fully discharge that activation. Over time, this incomplete stress creates what researchers call allostatic load. Essentially, your body gets stuck in a state of chronic low-level fight-or-flight activation. This interferes with sleep, digestion, immune function, and yes, dopamine production. The ancient Stoics understood this principle, though they described it differently. They talked about the importance of processing emotions fully rather than suppressing them or getting overwhelmed by them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." But here's the key insight: avoiding external stresses is often impossible. But learning to complete the stress cycle is always within your control. Let me walk you through what I call the daily release protocol. This is a simple practice that helps you discharge accumulated stress before it becomes chronic tension. First, conscious breathing. When you notice stress building up in your body, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, shallow breathing, stop what you're doing and take 5 deep breaths. But not just any breathing. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 6 counts. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system and signals to your brain that the threat has passed. Second, emotional acknowledgement. Get a piece of paper and write down 3 emotions you're feeling right now, without censoring or judging them. Maybe you're frustrated with your boss, worried about money, and excited about a weekend trip. Just naming emotions without trying to fix them or justify them helps your brain process them more effectively. Third, physical release. Stress is stored in your body, not just your mind. You need to move the energy through and out of your system. This could be as simple as shaking your hands and feet for 30 seconds, doing jumping jacks, going for a walk, or yes, even crying. If that's what wants to happen, the goal is to help your nervous system discharge the activation that stress created. The Stoic approach to emotional processing is beautifully balanced. They don't recommend suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. But they also don't recommend getting swept away by every feeling or making important decisions while highly emotional. Epictetus taught what he called the discipline of desire. Learning to want what happens rather than demanding that reality conform to your preferences. This doesn't mean being passive or resigned. It means accepting that stress, difficulty, and emotional turbulence are natural parts of life, and learning to move through them skillfully rather than getting stuck in them. When you complete the stress cycle regularly, several things happen. First, you sleep better because your nervous system isn't carrying unresolved activation into the night. Second, you think more clearly because stress hormones aren't clouding your judgment. Third, you feel more emotionally resilient because you're not accumulating emotional baggage from day to day. Most importantly, your dopamine system can function optimally because it's not being suppressed by chronic stress. You'll find that you naturally feel more motivated, more focused, and more optimistic when you're not carrying around unprocessed stress from previous days, weeks, or months. This practice requires consistency, not perfection. Some days you'll remember to do your daily release protocol, and some days you won't. Some days you'll feel completely clear after 5 minutes, and some days you'll need longer. The key is developing the habit of checking in with yourself and giving your nervous system what it needs to reset. And when you do this consistently, when you implement all 10 of these dopamine-supporting habits, something remarkable happens. You start to feel like yourself again. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not failing. You're just carrying too much, for too long, with nowhere for it to go. We talk about stress like it's something we can think our way out of. But stress isn't just mental. It's chemical. It's physical. It's emotional energy that lives in the body until it's given permission to move. And most of us never learned how to move it. We learned how to suppress, to silence, to push through. We were told to stay strong, to keep going, to toughen up. So we smile when we're hurting. We keep showing up when we're falling apart. And the stress just piles up, quietly, relentlessly, until one day it becomes something heavier. Anxiety, burnout, irritability, chronic fatigue, emotional numbness, a constant undercurrent of pressure, even when nothing's wrong. That's what happens when you carry stress without completing the cycle. And here's the neuroscience behind it. When your brain perceives a threat, real or imagined, it triggers a stress response. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. Cortisol spikes. Your body gets ready to run, fight, or freeze. But if you never physically complete that stress response, if you never let your body move through and out of that state, you stay stuck in the loop. Your nervous system never fully resets. Dopamine gets disrupted. You feel drained, overwhelmed, and oddly restless at the same time. And no, just thinking positively won't fix it. You can't outthink chemistry. You have to honor it. Which brings us to one of the most overlooked parts of emotional health. You don't release stress by pretending it's not there. You release stress by giving it space to move. Emotion is energy, and energy needs a channel. This is where the daily release protocol comes in. Not a fancy routine, not a dramatic breakdown. Just a simple way to signal to your body and brain, we're not suppressing anymore. We're letting go. Start with breath. 5 minutes. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Slow. Controlled. Present. Not to escape. Not to distract. But to shift the chemistry of your body in real time. Breathing like this activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and restore mode. Your heart rate drops. Your muscles release. Your brain gets the memo. I'm not in danger anymore. Then write. Grab a notebook, or a piece of paper, or your phone, if that's all you have. And without judgment, write down 3 things you're feeling. Not what you're supposed to feel. Not what sounds good. What's real. Maybe it's, I feel exhausted. Maybe it's, I feel angry, but I don't know why. Maybe it's, I feel numb. That's okay. There's no wrong answer. You're not solving anything. You're just acknowledging what your body already knows. And sometimes, that alone creates a shift. And finally, move. It doesn't have to be a workout. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be honest. Walk around the block. Stretch on the floor. Shake out your arms. Cry. Dance. Exhale loudly. Stand under a hot shower and let the tears come. Do whatever your body has been trying to do silently for weeks. Because when you move, you finish the stress response your nervous system started earlier. You give your biology closure. You complete the loop. And after that, you'll feel it. The quiet. The drop. The release. Your brain doesn't need a breakthrough to feel better. Sometimes, it just needs a way out. So, if you're holding tension in your jaw, if your shoulders are tight, if your thoughts keep circling the same unspoken worries, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me is trying to be heard right now? Then breathe. Write, Move. Do it gently. Do it consistently. Do it as an act of respect for the life you're carrying. Because the world won't always give you permission to stop. You have to claim it. You have to protect it. You have to choose, every day, to empty the cup before it overflows. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're simply alive. And your aliveness deserves release, not repression. So no more bottling it up. No more pushing it down. No more, "I'll deal with it later." Let your body speak. Let your breath guide. Let the energy move. And let yourself be human in the process. Because this practice of daily release isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength. It's strategy. And it's how you protect the clarity you've worked so hard to build. CTA. If this journey through these 10 strategies has shown you something new about yourself, if you feel like you finally have a roadmap back to your own energy and clarity, then I want you to know you're not walking this path alone. Subscribe right now, because this community is here to support you. One insight, one habit, one breath at a time. Outro. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not failing at life. You've just been operating out of alignment. Not because you don't care. Not because you're not trying. But because no one ever taught you how to work with your brain instead of against it. Because dopamine, this small but powerful molecule, isn't just a chemical of pleasure. It's the architecture behind your motivation, your energy, your ability to feel connected to what matters. And if it's been off lately, if your focus is scattered, if your emotions are fragile, if everything feels a little heavier than it should, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means it's time to reset. And no, you don't need to become a different person. You don't need to burn your life down or start over from scratch. You just need to return to what your body and mind have always been asking for. You need movement, not for calories, but for clarity. You need nourishment, not for discipline, but for direction. You need deep sleep, not for performance, but for peace. You need stillness, not to be spiritual, but to be sane. This isn't a self-help trick. This isn't a dopamine hack. This is recovery. This is neural rehabilitation. This is you returning to rhythm. Because the strongest lives aren't built on intensity, they're built on daily recovery. And recovery, real recovery, starts with choosing to believe, I'm not broken. I'm just ready to come back to myself.